How do I end that scene? Is there enough conflict? Isn't that too boring? How to create good characters? There isn't enough suspense. Does the end of the story even make sense? I mean, how to write a good story. Hello, I'm Lisa. I like to draw and create manga, and in this video we are going to talk about the art of writing. For the past 2 years I have been making one-shots for several manga contests, and eventually my manga started to win some awards. And what I've noticed over time is that the most important thing to make a good one-shot manga is the story. Not the art, but yes, the story. And some of you have been asking me to talk about my process for creating stories, so in this video let's deep dive into the different techniques I use to create scenarios for my mangas. Let's go! And small intervention before starting, but my brush pack with all the brushes I use to draw my manga is out. Included is my legendary line art brush, so go for it! Link in description. The first technique I want to talk about is actually a very well-known technique, the Ki-Sho-Ten-Ketsu structure. You might have heard it because it's often used in manga, films, or video games. So basically, it refers to a 4-act structure. Ki is an introduction to the characters, setting the scene and giving you information to understand the plot. Sho is the development that leads toward the ten, the twist. This is the climax. The story turns toward an unexpected development. And Ketsu, the conclusion, which wraps up the story. This method is also used in many long stories, but it works really well for short stories, like one-shots. I use this method in my one-shot titled Face Off, which even won an award in the Iten Toppa Manga Award. I'll put a link in the description for those who want to read it because I'm gonna spoil its content right now. Okay, here's how the story is structured following the Ki-Sho-Ten-Ketsu method. In this section, we meet the main character, Bonnie, who is seriously injured as the result of a bombing and wakes up in a hospital room covered in bandages. We also meet the story's antagonist, Dr. Morg. This section is 7 pages long. In this section, Bonnie heals after several months in the hospital and her love for Dr. Mark only grows. Bonnie's bandages can finally be removed, revealing a face that Dr. Mark finds very pleasant. The doctor talks about his wife, who also was seriously injured in the bombing. This section is 7 pages long. In this section, a big revelation is made. Bonnie discovers the doctor's horrific laboratory in the basement. He uses his patient's skin to graft onto his wife. The doctor appears and knocks Bonnie unconscious. This section is 3 pages long. The doctor uses Bonnie's face to create a new one for his wife. This section is 1 page long. This is how the entire story is structured. Of course, since this one-shot is very short, everything is very condensed. If you make a longer story, you can extend the length of each section as you wish. However, it's best to respect these ratios for each section to keep the story flowing and keep readers engaged. I'm currently in the process of making a one-shot that I plan to submit to a competition, and I can tell you that it's not really easy. But if you're like me and easily get confused when creating stories, Milanote, the sponsor of today's video, will become your best friend. Milanote helps me organize and structure my creative projects, especially with the built-in templates. I'll show you more in detail how I use the app to help me write my stories. This is the board I created for my one-shot. This story is called Hotel Bellevue for now. I might change the title later. And when it comes to creating stories for my manga, I like to think of it as if I was writing a novel. So I use the novel plan template to help me organize my ideas. The built-in templates are super easy to customize to your liking. The way the template is structured really helped me to shape my vague ideas I had in mind and turn it into a real draft for my story. So first, I created this subboard using the Story Brainstorm template. I think I'm more of a visual learner, so getting to see a first visual outline of the story was really helpful for me to get a clearer idea of what the story will be like. I also created a character sheet for each character using the character profile template. This is something I never did before actually, but it is so useful to really get to know your characters. And while writing the full scenario, I can easily take a look at this to check on the character's personality and backstory, because when there's multiple characters, it's very easy to get mixed up.
Who are you?
And after doing all that, I could finally start to create the story outline. That was the most important step to really get the story structure right. Each column represents a scene, and for each scene, I drew a doodle of what's happening. I really recommend doing this, especially before starting to draw your storyboard. And while creating it, I was able to find new ideas for certain scenes. So if you're creative looking to be more organized, I will highly recommend Milanote. There's an enormous amount of templates you can use for any type of projects. I mean any. You can even use Milanote on the go from your phone. Just open the app and use it just like you would on your computer. And if you're working in a team, you can share your work, collaborate in real time, and get feedback. Finally, Milanote is available for free with no time limit, so sign up for a free Milanote account using the link in the description. My Friend Thomas is a one-shot I drew in the spring of 2024 and which received the Excellence Award at the Kyushu International Manga Contest. Honestly, it's the manga I'm most proud of at the moment. The story is well-paced and a bit twisted. And how did I find inspiration for the story? By listening to a podcast.
Okay.
During March 2024, I knew I wanted to enter this contest, but I didn't know what to write about. I was lacking inspiration. To write scenarios, I based my storylines on manga I'd already read or tried to create something from scratch. But I've discovered over time that the best scenarios are built using a wide range of resources and references. My advice is to not limit yourself. Now I draw inspiration from films, podcasts, novels, manga, comics, my everyday life, in short, everything. I've also adopted the habit of always taking notes on things that could be useful for my stories. A line in a movie, a joke told by a friend, a dream I had during the night. I've been doing this for several years, so I can tell you that my notes app is full to bursting. But a word of advice. Even if you have an idea that you don't think is usable, write it down. You never know when it might be useful. You know, the first one-shot I talked about at the beginning of the video, Face Off. Well, it's not perfect. It has a flaw. The characters aren't developed enough. On the other hand, in My Friend Thomas, I knew exactly who the characters were. I think that to make a good one-shot, you have to prioritize the characters over the concept. Well, of course, that's just my opinion, but I tend to prefer stories that delve into the characters' psychology rather than action-packed stories where the characters are hollow and devoid of personality. In My Friend Thomas, I knew exactly who Mari was, what her ambitions, her beliefs, her insecurities were, partially because she was inspired by someone I know quite well, me. Hi. But that's really what made the difference. The idea of basing your story on characters rather than an original concept became even more relevant to me when I heard my editor's advice on a storyboard I had submitted to them. So, for this story, I decided to try a different approach to create the plot. I came up with a strong concept. Employees of a company who kill each other in a game organized by management. Sounds interesting, right? But the problem is that even after finishing my storyboard, the goals and the personalities of the characters were not clear at all. I had not worked beforehand on who my characters were. As a result, the whole story suffered. Empty dialogues, uninteresting characters, you get the idea. What I do now to avoid having a story where the characters are bland and lifeless is to do some preliminary work to make them my own and get to know them better. I fill out characters sheet, create illustrations, write their biographies, create a playlist they could listen to. Creating a character is a bit like crafting a human being from scratch. We're not either good or bad, we're complex with a past that has shaped us, so I try to give my characters all these layers. But it's hard, I admit, and I'm still working on that aspect of creating stories actually. Here we are at last. Hayao Miyazaki's technique. Yes! I used this method to create my one-shot You Have My Heart, which received the Grand Prix award at SMA 20. It was thanks to this one-shot that my adventure in the manga world began, and it's partially thanks to this method that I was able to win because it helped me a lot. Let's talk more about the technique. Instead of focusing on writing a storyline, Miyazaki starts by drawing. He writes down the key moments of the story without even knowing who the characters are or where the story will lead. When I saw this in a documentary I was watching on YouTube, I was very intrigued because I'd never seen such a creative process. At the time, I was figuring out what my one-shot would feature for SMA 20. I felt lost and struggled to come up with ideas because it was my first time creating a silent manga without dialogue. Using this method, I drew a key moment in the story I had in mind, and then all the other elements came to me very smoothly. By drawing one or more key moments, the story's timing is immediately defined, and all that's left to do is to fill in the gaps between each scene. Some people may feel constrained by a script that details every event in the story. This method allows you to let your creativity run wild and imagine impactful scenes that will form the skeleton of the story. Unfortunately, there is no magic formulas or miracle techniques for creating good stories, but I hope these techniques have helped you if you felt like you were hitting a wall when you were writing your script. There are as many ways to create a story as there are authors. Write freely and talk about whatever you want. You know, I'm just a girl trying to make manga in her bedroom, so I'm sorry if my knowledge is not like super advanced or if I made any mistakes. And if any of you have tips or want to share their process for creating stories, the comments are open and I'll be happy to read it. Truly, I think the most important thing when making manga is to have fun. Write stories that excite you, that you want to read. The tips I've given here are just tools to help you if you're having trouble structuring your thoughts or finding inspiration. But what matters is that you enjoy what you write. Manga is about having fun in the end. And thank you so much for watching and see you in the next video. Bye!